Hey guys, my name's Caitlin. Today we're going to be talking about why I'm Catholic while I paint my nails. So that's probably the first video like this to exist on the internet. It's pretty random, but I need to fix two of my nails and I want to talk about this. Also, if anyone cares, this is the gel polish I use. It's called like Gayo. Okay, that's kind of funny. And then these are my nails. I just have to fix a nail on this side, and then I'm gonna fix one of these because it's kind of falling off. So I want to start off with a story of something that happened to me when I was pretty young. So for context, I'm a very skeptical person, and it takes a lot for me to believe something, if that makes any sense. So for example, when I was a little kid, I'm the youngest in my family, but I was the first to not believe in Santa Claus and to go searching for the presents and whatever. So I've always been very skeptical. So as I grew up, I eventually became, I don't even want to say atheist or agnostic, because I was just a kid, but I didn't believe in God at all. I thought it was stupid and made up and something that I don't know, I thought it was Santa Claus. Parents just tell you it. I don't know why, but I just stopped believing in God. So one day I was with my best friend and we were watching Shane Dawson Conspiracy Theories in the living room. And I don't know, he was talking about God and the universe in some sort of way. And so my best friend and I kind of paused the video and started talking about it. And I went on a whole rant. And we both didn't believe in God at this time, but I went on this whole rant about how I didn't believe in God and why I didn't believe in God. And I don't exactly remember the reasons now, but they were really silly, not advanced things. Yeah, I was in 7th grade at the time. But anyway, I went on this crazy little rant about how I didn't believe in God. And then at the end of my rant, I looked at my friend and I said, so basically, I don't believe in God. And right when I said that, the power in my house went out, which was terrifying because we were home alone. So we literally ran outside. We left everything inside and we just sprinted out my back door to the porch. And we were totally freaked out that we left our phones inside because we just wanted to get out as soon as possible. So we stayed outside. We spent a random amount of time outside. And we walked down my street to see if any other houses had power. And all the other houses had power. So my house was the only house that had lost power, which has never happened. I've lived in this house. Now I'm 21. I've lived here since I was 5. And that has never happened except for on this specific day. So we lost power, and my best friend and I were just outside talking about kind of spiritual type things and how everyone has a story. And we all know stories oh, my grandma used to, whatever, said she knew someone who was in a car accident and saw an angel and somehow didn't get hurt even though the glass shattered. Weird stories, you know what I'm talking about. And so we just stood in my driveway walking in circles, terrified, talking about all these stories that we had heard. And yeah, kind of trying to figure out, is there a God in this whatever 30-minute period. And after a random amount of time, my friend was like, Caitlin, you have to go inside. I'm not going in there. I'm so terrified. So I was like, okay, fine. I'll go inside just to get our phones and we'll call our parents. So we went to my back porch and to open the door to go inside. And I walked towards the door and I thought in my head, I was standing there with my hands on the doorknob and I said, you know what? Sorry, I literally, every single time I tell this story, I get emotional because it actually did happen. This is a real story and it actually is crazy. I said, you know what? Maybe I do believe in God. right when I said that, the power went back on. So at that point, like, we were totally freaked out and like called our parents and whatever. And yeah, obviously that's a really crazy story, and there's like an extremely low probability of something like that happening. And I've talked to a lot of people about it, some like atheists who will just be like, oh, you know, it's just a coincidence. But at a certain point, I think when things like that happen and other people have stories like that, it starts to not matter. And just for clarification, if anyone cares, I was raised Catholic, but very lightly Catholic, and I went to Catholic school at that time. But I was not like ever like catechized or anything like that. And I was like, I was very lightly Catholic. So that happened, and you would think that would be like a life-changing moment for me, and I do think like down the line it really affected my life and who I am today and my morals and why I have such strong morals and why I'm a more like conservative person. But following that, like, I just like went to school on Monday and I didn't really think much of it, and like my life didn't change, you know. It's not like I became some like super strong Catholic or Christian following that. But I always kept it in the back of my head, and then down the line it like became a more relevant thing happened. And then I got older and I went to a Catholic high school, but it was not like a Catholic school in the slightest. Like, I don't think a lot of the kids were Catholic. I still came out of that school not knowing anything about the Catholic faith. Yeah, it just was not a Catholic school. We went to mass like just for like holy days of obligation. I don't even know if that's true. Or just like kind of holiday. Like, I feel like we went to mass for like Valentine's Day and like random time. Then I got to college, and I had been in a relationship for a very long time. Like almost all of high school, and then like part of the start of college. And with time, I kind of realized that I had very like different morals from the person I was with, and we ultimately broke up because we had differing morals, and he had kind of started to try to drag me into things that I would describe as being not good, or anyone would describe as being sin, but just like things that I had no interest in, and that I didn't want to be a part of, and like I just feel gross and like disturbed even like talking about it or like thinking about it. Like, I just don't ever want to be that type of person. And so I ultimately had to end that relationship, which was really hard for me, because like I loved that person, but I didn't love what he was doing. So when I was making that decision, I kind of came back to my faith, because I started noticing the like extreme difference in morals that we had, and I was kind of lost on, you know, where this was coming from, like how he could think certain things are okay that to me are just completely clearly not okay. And I ultimately realized this was coming from kind of my Christian background, and yeah, very quickly realized he wasn't Christian, and in fact kind of, I don't know, like had resentment towards Christ and anger towards me being Christian or just Christians in general, and it got really scary really fast. So I was out of there, and I don't know, I kind of say like sorry, that's my blue light from my nails. I like left my boyfriend at the time for my faith in many ways, which of course I would say is definitely the right decision. And if you're in a situation like that, obviously, that's what you should do. But I was very like sad for a long time, and because I was with this person for a really long time, and so I started listening to like Christian type podcasts and things that were just like had positive messages, things that are completely like heretical and silly and stupid looking back at it. But I think it's important, because sometimes we come back to our faith through silly ways. So for example, I used to listen to Joel Osteen, which of course like he's a nut. We all know that, like with the prosperity gospel and whatnot. But I used to listen to his like motivational whatever, and that kind of pulled me out of like a depression and ultimately brought me, you know, into reading scripture, which brought me to being kind of like a non-denominational Christian. I think my college is filled with a lot of like evangelical Christian type people, so I kind of ended up there doing like Bible studies and whatnot for a good amount of time. But then as I started really studying and reading the text, I got stuck because I realized a lot of my friends at school who were like evangelical Christians kind of were interpreting the Bible in their own way. And it was really frustrating for me because it would be like, oh, I'm kind of confused about what this verse means. And then my one friend would be like, oh, well, I think it means this. And then they would go talk to their pastor, and the pastor would be like, yeah, it means that. And then you would talk to another pastor affiliated with like the same organization, and they would be like, no, it doesn't mean that. And like I just saw so much, I don't want to say fighting, but like disagreement all the time, and nothing was unified, and there was no consensus on like what was right and what was wrong, and no like authority. Ultimately, I saw these men as being men, like normal, ordinary people who were just deciding what the Bible meant. And like, I don't know about you, but I don't have trust in like a normal American guy picking up a Bible and saying, I think it means this, you know? So that was kind of my issue with like the concept of sola scriptura. I also think if we look at specific verses in the Bible, I think the Bible itself kind of disproves the concept of sola scriptura, which we can talk about, but I don't want to make this like a apologetics video. Like I don't want to get into the arguing right now, even though I really do like that type of stuff. I think it's really entertaining and fun. Anyway, back to my little story. So yeah, with a lot of like studying and whatnot, I ultimately found myself back in the Catholic Church, which is funny because I always was a Catholic Church hater since I was a kid. I thought it was stupid. I thought the concept of a pope was stupid. I don't know, I was just a little hater since I was a kid. Anyway, like I said, I don't want to talk about like actual apologetics and be like controversial here, although we can do that at some point because I do like doing that type of stuff and I think it's important, but there's plenty of like resources online if you're interested in that. For why I'm actually Catholic, there are like probably a lot of different reasons. I don't want to get into scripture right now, but I'll say this. If you're someone who's like anti-Catholic or whatever, you're online and you see people really hating on Catholics, which is typical, I would say mostly coming from like evangelical Christians, more than Protestants even. Like, I don't know who these people are, but they act like Catholics are Mormons. Like, I don't know, I see it all the time in comment sections. I appreciate it because when I was like discerning, my like faith, I was reading these comments and they would say what I would argue are really silly things, and I would be like, what? Catholics believe this? And then it takes like 2 minutes of research and you're like, oh. So I want to talk about two different things regarding history. So the saints, of course, and Marian apparitions. So both should be very, very, very important to all Christians, but I feel that most Protestants and evangelicals don't do a proper job at looking, even Orthodox Christians at times, don't do a proper job at looking into the evidence here. And I think that's very important. If you are a true follower of Christ, you should be interested into kind of any news regarding Christ. Even if you ultimately don't believe it or think it's like nonsense, you should know what the evidence was and why there are so many people believing it. So specific Marian apparitions that like stick out to me, I would say, oh, here's my nail, by the way, if anyone cares. I would say like Our Lady of Guadalupe probably is my favorite. I don't know if I should have a favorite, but truly a beautiful and like fascinating story. Just thinking about like the rapid conversion of people is a very confusing thing to explain with no supernatural event. I think it's very clear that like something happened there, right? Whether or not you agree with you know, it being real or it just being a rumor and, you know, that's what caused people to convert is up to you. But I think like the existence of the tilma today in general is just so insane, and it's not talked about. I think that if you went up to a lot of like American Protestants and asked them about like these different apparitions, especially like something as big as Our Lady of Guadalupe, they wouldn't know. Like most of them literally would be like, what? I didn't know that happened. So yeah, that's something that's so crazy to me, because like truly that type of stuff is so important. So I would say, first of all, the Marian apparitions, and then second, the saints. The saints are very, very important and wonderful models we have in deciphering how we want to like live our lives, especially as a girl. I think that nowadays a lot of role models that are like pushed towards girls, I don't know what is being pushed towards boys because I'm not a boy, well maybe like Andrew Tate or whatever, aren't so good. But then having different wonderful like female saints to look up to is really helpful and beautiful. And I think just in principle, knowing the history of your beliefs is so important. Yeah, so I think for me, like the lack of attention towards the different saints, which I understand there's like controversy, on like, oh, do Catholics worship Mary? Do Catholics worship saints? I'll save you the time. The answer is no. I just think that like the different martyrs and like saints are so important to our faith, knowing all these different people who like lived and died for Christ and for the truth, sometimes very, very disturbing, you know, gory deaths. And then also have just these different individuals who have been beautiful, beautiful people and gone on to do very, very good charitable acts throughout their whole life, which we all know how difficult it can be to be such a good person. So I think missing out on all these like historical figures, at the end of the day, they are people who lived and died, and just not spending any time talking about them or putting any kind of weight into their testimony, I just feel like you're missing out on so much. I guess that's why like Catholicism is often referred to as like the fullness of the truth. Anyway, I have a new little story to add to this video, but basically a couple nights ago, I like to pray the rosary every night. So I keep it under my pillow. This is my rosary. It's in this cute little case, and then I have my pocket rosary. It's so cute. Anyway, but my blue rosary is my main rosary. So I pray every night with a video, okay, on YouTube that I really like. It helps me calm down before bed. And I was doing that a couple nights ago, and then I had finished, but I still wasn't asleep, which is kind of good because you don't want to be falling asleep while praying the rosary, but I wasn't asleep, so I just put on a random video that was like in the recommended, and it happened to be a video on the miraculous medal, which I had never heard of, believe it or not, or seen really, so I didn't recognize it. And to be honest, I clicked on it because I thought it looked weird. And I was curious about what it was. I was watching it, I was like reading the comments, you know, seeing what people are saying, and the first comment on that video was, oh, I watched this video and then the next day I reached into like an old coat pocket and I found a miraculous medal. Like I said before, I'm a really like skeptical person, so when I read that, I immediately was like I just doubted. I was like, no, that's not true. Like, I read that, I was like, you're so stupid. Like, obviously that didn't happen. People are so annoying. Like, why do people always have to lie? That was my first instinct toward reading that. So if that tells you anything about how I am when it comes to faith, I really do tend to like doubt. Anyway, so I went to bed, and then the next day I woke up, and my dad wanted to go to a laundromat because I had to wash my guinea pig blankets, and they don't like me to wash it at my house because it's like kind of gross, and it like leaves the washing machine kind of gross. So anyway, my dad and I were getting ready to go to the laundromat, and I went in my room into a piggy bank I have, and I started like whatever, getting coins, like getting the quarters out for the laundromat. And I picked up a little picture of Mary. And I sat there and I was like, I swear, if I turn this over and it's the miraculous medal, I'm gonna freak out. Like, whatever. And I turned it over and it was the miraculous medal. Can you see? Here's our little, I don't think it wants to show you, but you get the point. You see? You see? Here we have miraculous medal. Anyway, it totally freaked me out because the whole reason I clicked on the video and like watched it was because it seemed so unfamiliar to me and I didn't really recognize that symbol. So yeah, that's my little story about the miraculous medal. I hope you liked my video. Sorry, it was really unorganized and rambly. I wasn't like, you know, I didn't make notes. I was literally just talking while painting my nails. But yeah, I'm Catholic because I believe it to be the fullness of the truth. Anyway, love you guys. Thank you for watching. Sorry, it probably was boring, but that's my video. That's my little story.